The rain hit the windshield like bullets as the old yellow taxi snaked through the winding road toward the city hospital. The wipers moved in a frantic rhythm, barely keeping up. In the back seat, a young woman clutched a tiny newborn to her chest, trembling. "Drive faster, please," she cried out, her voice cracking. "He's not breathing right." The driver stole a glance at her through the mirror. "Lady, we'll die if I go faster in this storm." Her gown was soaked in blood and sweat. Her eyes were swollen from crying, and her arms, thin and trembling, wrapped tightly around the limp bundle in her arms. The baby's whimper had gone quiet 10 minutes ago. Too quiet. "Hold on, Aries. Please hold on," she whispered desperately, stroking his damp forehead. Her hands were shaking. She could feel the warmth slipping from his tiny body. Her heart screamed louder than any thunder outside. They pulled up to the entrance of St. Mercy General Hospital just before midnight. The red emergency sign flickered like a heartbeat. The moment the cab stopped, she threw open the door and stumbled out barefoot, still in her blood-stained gown. "Help!" she screamed, bursting through the glass doors. "My baby's not breathing. Please." Doctors and nurses rushed over. One nurse gently pried the child from her arms as another lowered her to the floor. "We've got him," someone said. "No, you don't understand, he's not." She tried to speak, but her voice broke. Doors slammed as the baby was taken inside. She was alone, on her knees, cold, soaked, and that's when she felt the presence behind her. A tall man in a long black coat stepped forward from the shadows of the waiting room. He stood still for a moment, observing her, his face unreadable. She turned toward him, eyes wild with panic. "Please, save my baby." He blinked, once and froze. His name was Rayan Cole. He was the billionaire CEO of a multinational tech firm. Everything he touched turned to gold except his past. He hadn't stepped into this hospital in years. He was only there that night because he had agreed to fund the expansion of the children's wing. A publicity meeting, that's all. But when he heard her cry those words, "Please, save my baby," he forgot the meeting, the cameras, even the storm outside. Those were the exact words his mother had said before she died. His mother, whose face he could barely remember. His mother, who had vanished into the night with a baby girl that was never found. He crouched beside the girl on the floor. She was shivering, her lips blue, but her eyes looked too familiar. "Are you the mother?" he asked, quietly. She nodded, teeth chattering. "Yes, his name is Aries. Please tell me he's okay." "I'm not a doctor," Rayon said, "but I can make sure he gets everything he needs." He looked at the nurse behind him. "Get a trauma team. No cost limits. Use the VIP unit." The nurse blinked, recognizing the man. "Yes, Mr. Cole." Lena's eyes widened. Why are you helping me?" "I don't know yet," Rayan replied. "But I've seen you before." Her name was Lena Safdar, 22, no parents, no stable home, no ID. She had fled from a private clinic 2 hours after giving birth, barefoot and bleeding. She wasn't supposed to keep the baby. That had been the agreement. But something changed the moment. She looked into Aris's face. He looked just like her, and like someone else, someone she had tried to escape. After her baby was rushed into NICU, Lena was placed in a spare hospital room. Rayan had made a call, one that sent the hospital into high alert. Private nurses, fresh clothes, warm food. Everything was suddenly at her disposal. She didn't trust it. She didn't even trust him. He knocked on her door gently. She opened it, confused and suspicious. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "I think we need to talk." She looked down, then stepped aside. He sat on the edge of the chair while she remained standing, arms crossed. "I had your name checked," he said. "You gave no last name to the nurses. I didn't want to be found." "Why?" Lena hesitated. "Because the baby's father, he's dangerous." Rayan's eyes narrowed slightly. "Does he know where you are?" "I don't think so. But I don't know how long I have before he finds me." There was a long pause. Rayan pulled a small envelope from his coat pocket and laid it on the table. "This might sound strange, but I had your DNA tested from the blood on your hospital gown." "You what?" she gasped, backing away. "I had to know. You see," he looked up at her. 25 years ago, my mother died giving birth to a girl. They told my family she didn't survive." Lena froze. "I was 5. I barely remember her, but I remember her words, 'Please, save my baby.' That night changed everything." Lena's voice shook. "And you think I'm her?" "I don't know yet, but the test will tell us in 24 hours." Tears filled her eyes. This can't be happening. She looked down at her hands. I don't even know where I come from. Maybe neither do I, he said softly. That night, as the storm raged outside, Lena sat in the dark room watching her baby through the glass window of the NICU. Machines blinked around him. He was breathing, but still weak. She pressed her palm to the glass. You have to live, she whispered. I'll protect you. I'll never let him take you. Behind her, a camera lens zoomed in from across the parking lot. A man in a leather jacket watched through binoculars from a black SUV. His phone lit up. Unknown, CALUR, he answered. She's here, with the baby, at St. Mercy. The voice, on the other end, replied coldly, and the billionaire, she doesn't know who he really is, but he's watching her. Good, keep it that way. For now. The next morning, a nurse handed Lena a sealed envelope with no return name. Someone dropped this off for you, she said. Lena frowned and opened it. Inside was a photo of her baby, taken in the NICU just hours ago. Her hands shook on the back. Scribbled in bold black marker, you can't hide him forever. He's mine. Her breath caught. No, she whispered. No, no, no. How did he find me? The room spun. She stumbled out into the hallway. Rayanne was walking toward her, coffee in hand. Then he saw her pale face, the photo in her shaking grip, and her knees giving out beneath her. He caught her before she hit the floor. Lena sat curled on the hospital cot, hugging her knees to her chest, the photo trembling in her hand. You can't hide him forever. He's mine. The words were seared into her mind. Her heartbeat thudded louder than the rain outside. She couldn't understand how he had found her not so soon. Not here, not now. Footsteps approached. Rayanne entered quietly, holding a cup of warm tea. He placed it on the table, then sat in the chair across from her. His voice was low, steady. Tell me who sent that note. She stayed silent. I can't help you unless I know what you're running from. She stared down. Her voice came out as a whisper. His name is Faison. I met him when I was working at a cafe 2 years ago. He was charming at first, said all the right things, promised me safety, love, a future. Rayanne watched her carefully. And then I found out who he really was. Her hands gripped the photo tighter. He wasn't just a businessman like he said. He was connected to gangs, laundering, and things I didn't even want to believe existed. When I got pregnant, he told me I had no choice. He'd take the baby, raise him to follow in his footsteps. Rayanne's jaw clenched. I tried to leave. He locked me in, monitored everything. I managed to fake a labor emergency and begged one of the drivers to take me to a private clinic outside the city. I gave birth there and ran with the baby hours later. She looked up at him. I didn't plan to end up here. I just kept running. The baby stopped breathing on the way. And then ... I found you. In another part of the city, a man leaned over a glass table, running a thumb over the same photo that had shaken Lena. Fair Zan. He was calm, well-dressed, with a voice that dripped with venom. She ran. He murmured to the man standing before him. With my son. She went to St. Mercy. The man said, but the CEO, Ori and Cole, got involved. Faison's eyebrow arched. Cole, he stood slowly. Now, that's interesting. Back at the hospital, Lena was discharged from the emergency wing and allowed to stay in one of the family rooms next to the NICU. Rayanne stayed close, but not invasive. He brought her food, spoke little, always watched. Later that evening, she caught him staring at the photo she had placed on the nightstand. Old picture of her when she was 5, in a tattered dress, standing in front of a rusted gate. You looked sad, he said gently. I was, she replied. That was the day my foster mother told me she'd be moving to another country and leaving me behind. I'd already been through 3 homes by then. Do you know anything about your birth parents? He asked. She shook her head. Only that I was found outside a clinic a week after birth, wrapped in a pink blanket, with no name. Rayanne's gaze darkened. My mother ... She was a nurse. She disappeared with her newborn daughter 25 years ago. They told us she died, that the baby didn't make it either. Lena's breath caught. You really think I could be her? Well, no, tomorrow. The DNA results come in at noon. At 2 a.m., the hospital was quiet. Lena couldn't sleep. She stood at the NICU window, staring at her son through the glass. Machines beeped gently. He looked fragile but alive. I'll never let him take you, she whispered. Suddenly, a shadow moved behind her. She turned fast, heart pounding. Nothing. She walked back to her room. but someone was watching. A small black surveillance camera blinked red from inside a potted plant across the hall. The next morning, Rayan met Lena outside the lab. He held a brown envelope in his hand. She didn't breathe as he opened it. Silence. He looked at her. "It's true," he whispered. She blinked. "What, you're my sister?" Lena felt the floor shift beneath her. She grabbed the wall for support. "I have a family," she whispered. Rayan nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "And I have a sister I never knew existed." Tears ran down her face. For the first time in a long time, she felt something she hadn't dared to feel before: belonging. But just as the weight lifted from her chest, Rayan's phone rang. His assistant. He stepped aside a few seconds later. He returned, his face pale. "That was security," he said grimly. "Someone hacked into the hospital surveillance last night. They've been watching your room." Lena's heart dropped. In a dark corner of the hospital's parking lot, a black van idled quietly. Inside, Faison stared at the monitors. "She's the billionaire's sister," he scoffed. "This just got more fun." The man beside him asked, "Do we take the baby now?" Faison's eyes narrowed. "No, not yet. Let her think she's safe." Then he smiled. "She's about to make the biggest mistake of her life." Back in her hospital room, Lena was shaken. She clutched her baby as Rayan paced. "I'm moving you both to a safe house. My private security will escort you. No one will find you there." She nodded, exhausted. "I just want this nightmare to be over." Later that night, as Rayan handled the arrangements, Lena sat by the crib, humming a soft lullaby. Her son's eyes fluttered open. She smiled, tears in her eyes. He was awake, he was breathing, and she would protect him with everything she had. Outside, Faison watched the hospital lights go dark one by one. He took out his phone and typed a message. "Make sure the nurse gives her the wrong meds tonight. Something light, just enough to make her groggy. We move tomorrow. Send." The next morning, Rayan returned to her room, but she wasn't there. Only the nurse remained. She took the baby and left. The nurse said casually, said she was being transferred. Showed ID. Rayan's blood turned to ice. He rushed to security. Surveillance footage showed a woman dressed as a nurse wheeling out the baby crib with Lena behind her, dazed, her movements slow and robotic. "No, no, no, no." Rayan slammed his fist on the desk. Faison had taken them, but what he didn't know was that Lena wasn't as helpless as she looked. In the back of the van, Lena sat cradling her baby. Her eyes fluttered open slowly. She wasn't groggy anymore. The drug was wearing off, and she remembered everything. She saw the man driving, saw the woman beside her in a nurse's uniform. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She looked down at her baby and whispered, "Just hold on." And then quietly she reached into her pocket and pressed the GPS tracker. Rayan had secretly slipped into her sweater. It beeped once, a signal. The hum of the van's engine masked Lena's deep, steady breaths. Her arms wrapped tightly around her baby, who had fallen asleep again, unaware of the danger around them. She kept her eyes mostly closed, playing along, but inside, she was wide awake and furious. The nurse impersonator beside her chatted casually with the driver, unaware that Lena had pressed the tiny GPS tracker Rayan gave her. Every second now counted. She knew Faison wouldn't stop until he had total control. She also knew his charm was his greatest weapon. He made people believe they were safe right up until he turned them into pawns or prisoners. Never again. Not her. Not Riz. Across the city, Rayan barked orders into his phone. "Track that signal. I want helicopters in the air in every street." Camera reviewed. "Don't wait. Move." His hands were shaking. The thought of losing the sister he'd just found and the baby he'd promised to protect filled him with a rage he hadn't felt in years. He had already failed to save one family. He wasn't going to fail again. Meanwhile, Lena studied the surroundings as the van pulled into a large private estate on the outskirts of town. High gates, security cameras, remote, isolated. The gates opened slowly. The nurse turned and smiled. Home sweet home. Lena forced a weak smile back. As they entered the mansion, Faison stood waiting at the top of the stairs, arms spread, like a proud host. "You look more beautiful than ever," he said softly, his voice dripping with sickening charm. "I've missed you." Lena's stomach turned, but she kept her face blank. "Why are you doing this?" "Because he's my son," Faison said, stepping closer, "and I'll raise him to be stronger than you ever could. With me, he'll have power, wealth, legacy." He'll have nothing but fear, she snapped, unable to hold back. Fazen's eyes narrowed. Still stubborn, I see, but that will fade. He reached out toward the baby. She flinched back instinctively. Then something unexpected happened. Fazen stopped mid-reach and turned to the woman who brought them in. Take the baby to the upper wing. Room 7, lock it. The woman obeyed. Instantly. No, don't take him, Lena cried, trying to grab her baby, but she was still weak from the drug. The woman shoved her back as she carried Aries away. Lena collapsed to the floor. Fazen knelt beside her. I didn't want to do this, he whispered, but you chose this war. Back at Rayan's high-security command center, the signal finally pinged loud and clear. She's about 45 kilometers east of the city, his head of security confirmed. Old estate, owned under a dummy company. We're mobilizing. Prepare. The extraction team, Rayan ordered. But I'm going with them. You sure, sir? That's my sister. And that baby is family. Inside the mansion, Lena sat on the floor of the guest room where they had locked. The door was metal. The windows had bars. But she had something they didn't know. In her boot, taped under the sole, was a thin piece of razor wire. She'd learned long ago never to trust safety. With trembling hands, she peeled the boot apart, pulled out the wire, and began working on the lock. Meanwhile, in another room, Fazen stood before a long wooden cabinet. He pulled open the drawer to reveal dozens of photos, women, children, homes, passports, fake identities. This was his real business, buying and selling people into shadows. The child wasn't just his heir, he was inventory. Soon you'll belong to something bigger, he whispered to the photo of Aries. Lena picked the lock in under 4 minutes. Her hands were raw, bleeding, but she was free. She crept into the hallway barefoot, staying low. She could hear voices upstairs. A faint cry. Riz. She moved fast, ducking past a security guard. Found the staircase, room 7. She tried the handle. Locked. She backed up. Then kicked the door with everything she had. Once, twice. On the third kick, it flew open. Her baby was lying on a velvet crib, surrounded by cold, expensive furniture. She scooped him into her arms, breathing hard. We're going home. Alarms started blaring. Someone had spotted her on the surveillance feed. Outside, black SUVs tore through the estate gates. Rayan and a full tactical team stormed the property. Get to the upper wing, Rayan shouted. Room 7. Lena and the baby are in there. Fazen watched from the security room, fuming. No, not yet. He grabbed a pistol from the drawer and stormed out. Lena ran through the hallway, baby in arms, heart pounding. The sound of boots and guns echoed everywhere. Suddenly Fazen appeared at the top of the stairs. Stop, he shouted, raising the gun. Don't make me do this, Lena. You already did. She yelled back, standing tall. You drugged me. You tried to steal my son. I gave you a home, protection. You were nothing before me, and I'd rather be nothing than your slave. His finger moved to the trigger. Then dash bang. A single shot fired through the hallway. Fazen staggered. Rayan stood behind him, gun in hand, breathing hard. Fazen collapsed, groaning. Are you okay? Rayan ran to Lena as she nodded, eyes wide with shock. He looked down at the baby, then back at her. You fought your way out, he whispered. You didn't wait to be rescued. She smiled weakly. I promised him I'd never let anyone take him again. Rayan looked at her with pride. You're stronger than any woman I've ever known. As Fazen was taken into custody, screaming about revenge, Rayan escorted Lena and the baby to safety. Outside, dawn was breaking. The first light touched the horizon. Lena sat in the back of the SUV, holding Aries, tears running down her cheeks. For once, they weren't from fear, they were from relief. Rayan sat beside her, his hand gently covering hers. You're not alone anymore, he said. We're family now. And in that moment, for the first time in her life, she believed it. The courtroom was packed. Media vans were parked outside. Reporters whispered into their microphones. Flashbulbs popped as Fazen was escorted in, wearing a prison jumpsuit, wrists chained, eyes burning with hatred. Inside, Lena sat on the witness stand, holding her baby in her arms. Aries was now healthier, stronger, and asleep against her chest. She took a deep breath. Everything she'd been through, the isolation, the fear, the sleepless nights led to this moment. The prosecutor stood. Miss Lena Sakha, in your own words, what did Fazen do to you? She looked straight at Faison, her voice firm. He lied to me. He used me, trapped me in his world. And when I tried to leave, he told me he owned my baby. He planned to take my son and sell him. The courtroom gasped. He wasn't trying to raise him, she continued, her hands tightening around Aries. He was grooming him for a life of crime and control. My son would have been the next pawn in his empire. Faison slammed his fists on the table. Liar, that child is mine. The judge banged his gavel. Ordered, but Lena didn't flinch. Rayan sat in the front row, watching her, his sister, stand her ground. She had once been too afraid to look anyone in the eye. Now she stood, unshaken, holding her baby and her truth. After the testimony, Faison's legal team tried to spin the case. They presented fake documents, false statements, old video footage twisted out of context, but it didn't matter, because the FBI had been watching Faison's criminal web for years, and Lena's escape had triggered a flood of new evidence: child trafficking, money laundering, assault, attempted abduction. It all unraveled in the trial, and when Rayan testified, confirming the surveillance, the threats, the secret files, everything sealed into place. The verdict came in 2 weeks later: guilty on all counts. Faison was sentenced to life in federal prison, without parole. Lena didn't cry when they read the sentence. She just held Aries tighter, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "We're free now." Weeks passed. The media storm faded. The cameras disappeared. But Rayan didn't. He moved Lena and Aries into a private estate on the outskirts of the city, a safe, peaceful place surrounded by nature. At first, Lena resisted. "I don't want charity," she said. "I need to stand on my own feet." But Rayan shook his head. "It's not charity. You're family, and you're the bravest person I know." Still, Lena insisted on doing things her way. She began working part-time at a local community shelter. Women escaping domestic abuse. She knew their pain. She had lived it. Her story gave them courage. Every day, she grew stronger, more alive, more herself. One evening, Lena stood on the back porch, holding a warm mug of tea as Aries crawled on the soft grass. The sun dipped low behind the trees, casting a golden glow. Stepped beside her. "Mom would have been proud of you," he said quietly. Lena smiled. "I didn't think I'd ever know what it felt like to belong somewhere." "You do now," he said. She turned to face him. "Can I ask you something?" Of course. "Why did you help me that night? You didn't know who I was." He looked out over the hills. "Because I saw something in your eyes. Something I hadn't seen in a long time."
"What fear?"
"The kind that doesn't come from weakness but from someone who's been strong for too long." Her throat tightened. "I was so scared, but you never gave up." They were quiet for a moment. Then Rayan added, "There's something else I haven't told you." Lena turned, curious. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small, folded photo. It was old, faded. Her breath caught when she saw it. It was a picture of a young nurse holding a baby girl. "My mom," Rayan said. "And you." Tears welled in her eyes. "She didn't abandon you," he continued softly. "She was running too, from someone in our extended family who wanted to take her baby Yubi, 'cause she wasn't married, and they thought it was a disgrace." Lena gasped. "She hid you, then died in an accident before she could return. They told us you had died with her." She placed a hand over her mouth, overwhelmed. "All this time," she whispered, "I've searched for you since I was 18. Rayan said, "I didn't think I'd ever find you, but I did." He smiled. "And you gave me a nephew, too." Lena laughed through her tears. "He's lucky to have you." "No," Rayan said gently. "We're lucky to have you." That night, Lena sat by Aries's crib, watching him sleep peacefully, for the first time. There were no locked doors, no fake nurses, no footsteps outside. The window just the hum of crickets and the soft rustle of the trees. She whispered, "You were worth every moment of pain." Then she turned to her desk, pulled out a journal, and began to write. 1 year later, Lena's story had gone global. She was invited to speak at conferences, lead survivor circles, and collaborate with law enforcement to help others like her. She wasn't just a girl who ran. She was a voice, a mother, a warrior, a sister, and a healer. She founded Project Aries, a non-profit supporting young mothers escaping abuse and trafficking. Every time she stood before a crowd, holding her child on her hip, she reminded the world that some mothers don't just give birth to life. They fight to protect it no matter the cost. One rainy afternoon, much like the night everything began, Lena stood in front of the mirror. Aries tugged on her dress. Now walking and babbling, she picked him up and smiled. "You changed everything," she whispered. Outside, Rayan waited with the car. They were going to visit their mother's grave, together for the first time, as siblings. And for Lena, it was not the end, it was the beginning. The end, soul-hitting lesson. Some people are born into pain, silence, or fear. But even in the darkest hour, one brave step, one cry for help can open the door to healing, to family, and to a life you never thought you could deserve. Survival is not weakness, it is strength in its purest form.